Hi everyone, Crazy here with another video. I'm sorry it's been so long since my last one. I tried uploading this video last week, but I tried putting some music on it and it got copyrighted, so it got brought down, or I guess people couldn't really view the video pretty much anywhere. So I just ended up deleting the video and just gonna redo it here now. I also wasn't able to record Dragon Arena last week, and our KVK sucked. It was so dead. We took it pretty handily. So there just really hasn't been a lot of content. We've had a couple rallies and such. You see Toxic all over the news. But none of these were really video worthy that I was able to get. So yeah, anyway, that's my excuse for why I haven't uploaded in so long. If anyone has any good recommendations for where I can find music that isn't copyrighted, I would love to hear some suggestions in the comments, because it seems like one of the biggest things that people have been telling me that I need to change about my videos is there should be some background music or something going on. I haven't been able to find any yet, so I decided I would just do this video, keep looking for music, and try to get that going for future videos. But anyway, let's move on to the topic of this video. So this video, as you can tell by the title, is kind of an educational video, basically about whether people should push champ or not these days. So it's going to be more of a technical video. It's not going to be a lot of action or anything like that. It's just going to be, more of an educational video, I guess, or at least I hope it's going to be. So where does this all come from? Why are we having this conversation? Well, this conversation is coming about because of the implementation of Astralight. Astralight has changed the game a little bit in terms of what you should work on moving forward. Whereas previously basically, it was either go for the quote-unquote free-to-play gear or just go for champ gear. And the one way to increase your stats, obviously one way to increase your stats over the free-to-play gear is to get champ. And that's because champ has the best stats in the game. It has the most army HP. It's got also quite a lot of attack. It's kind of just got a little bit of everything. So why are we talking about this? Well, with the implementation of Astralight, it's looking like, unless you're actually looking to Astralight champion gear, it's actually better to just Astralight your non-champion gear and not push for champ in some cases. And the reason that I say that is, first of all, you need to actually create the champion gear, which costs, if people don't know, it costs thousands of dollars to do that. Just these 3 pieces right here cost quite a substantial amount. Getting the accessories, that is. So not only do you have to spend to actually get the champion gear, but then you need to astrolite it. Well, if you're going to keep spending, if champ's not enough for you. Now, what happens? Well, when you're spending your precious money in this game, everybody wants to spend to be the most efficient. At least that should be your goal, is to try to get the most stats for the best bang for your buck. So with the implementation of Astrolite, it is looking like a lot of the non-champ pieces of gear are actually better than champ pieces of gear when you astrolite them. So I've got a little, well, before I go, I've got a spreadsheet, but before I go into the spreadsheet, I'll explain a little bit more. So basically, if you have a level 12 astrolite non-champ piece of gear, the stats on that are actually better than a champion piece gear for the most part, and it's cheaper to do it that way. So for instance, we could go to the plate here. So to astrolite this anymore, so it's at astrolite 6, to get it to 7 it would take 238, right? That's quite expensive. That's quite a lot of money just to get these amount of stats here, versus I've got a level 6 astrolite firewall plate, and to upgrade that to level 7 is less than a quarter of the amount, only 51 astrolite. So if you're looking at getting the best bang for your buck, it's probably better nowadays to actually astrolate non-champion gear to level 12 rather than purchasing champion gear, because it's more expensive to get the champion gear than it is to astrolate non-champ pieces of gear. So it's more expensive for champ. It's not as good for the most part. So kind of why would you spend on champ these days? The only reason you would spend on champ these days is if you're going to astrolite it. If you're going to go big, if you're going to go and just keep spending and keep upgrading your gear, then obviously you want to do champ and then you want to astrolite. But if you're spending on a budget and you're trying to figure out what the best way to do get your stats up, then honestly, for a lot of people, it's probably going to look a lot better to get non-champion pieces of gear. So I've got a spreadsheet here. Let me just pull it up that I've created. So we've got two spreadsheets. We've got a raw stat spreadsheet, which is this one right here, and then we've got a value system spreadsheet that we've got right here. So I've created these spreadsheets to kind of hit my point home a little bit. So this spreadsheet is the raw stat spreadsheet, and it takes into account attack and HP. Defense is only on a very small amount of pieces of gear, and army defense is the least valuable stat in the game. So I decided that on the raw stat sheet I wouldn't include it with the stats. I would just indicate whether it had army defense or not. On the value system, which we'll go into second, you can see that it does account for army defense. So we've got two spreadsheets here to try to hammer home the point. So we were looking at the firewall plate and the champion plate. So let's look at that here. So when we look at the total stats, so the firewall plate at mythic with no astrolite gives us a total stats of 133. So The way you get this number is you add up the total attack by the army HP, and you multiply the army HP by 3. So total attack here includes army attack and the individual attack, so that's all accounted for in the equation. Because it multiplies army attack by 3 and adds up the individual attacks to get your total attack. Then you take your army HP, you multiply that by 3, because again, in mixed compositions, you're going to have 3 army troop types, so you need to account for the fact that army HP is actually applying 3 times, not just once. So anyway, that's a little bit of the formula for how we got here. And we can see that the total stats for the firewall plate are 133. The total stats for a firewall plate astrolighted to level 12 is 190. Now we can compare that to the champion plate, not astrolighted, gives 161 total stats. Like, yes, it gives army defense, but that's kind of neither here nor there. It's not an important enough stat, again, to include in this table specifically. So we see that a 12 times astrolite firewall plate is actually better by 29% than a champion plate. So not only is it better, but it's better by quite a decent amount. Now, of course, we look here at the 12 times champion plate when it's astrolated, and it gives a total stats of 230 versus the firewall plate of 190. But again, to get the firewall plate to 190 is going to be cheaper than just even getting your champion plate at all. Period. Then you're going to have to astrolite your champion plate to get it to 230 to actually make it better than the firewall plate. So in this case, unless again you're willing to spend, honestly, the way this game works, the better something is, the less efficient it becomes. Like the 11K heroes, you spend 11,000 US dollars to get some stats, and it's not that many stats. Like, yes, they are good. Yes, they increase your stats in battle by a decent amount, but paying $11,000 for the stats you get is probably by far the most inefficient thing you can do in the game. 11K heroes are probably something you should do last, unless of course you're just not balling on a budget, if you're just balling and spending. So cheaper to get the firewall plate to the level 12 astrolite than it is to get a champion plate, and it gives you more stats. So really, a 12 times firewall plate, you might as well consider somebody with a 12 times firewall plate champion, because it's better than a champion plate. And we can see that trend continues for the most part. There's 2 exceptions to this. First of all is the helmet, and the second exception are the boots. But even still, let's go into the helmets here. So the reason the helmets are an exception is because a 12 times Bumble helm will have just 2% better than a champion helm in terms of raw stats. Sorry, it's really early in the morning, so I've got a cup of coffee with me. Okay. So this might be an argument for someone saying, well, getting a champion helmet may be worth it because a 12 times astrolated Bumble helm only has 2% more stats. But again, it's going to be cheaper to get your Bumble helm to to rank 12 Astrolite. Especially, I will say, a little asterisk to this is that this is especially true in that this is going to be cheaper than a champion helm if you're doing the double coupon. The best way to get Astrolite in the game is to wait for the double coupon, to spend up to the $100 mark, and then get a double $100 pack of Astrolite for free. That is the best way for sure to get Astrolite in the game. So it's even more true if you're going to be patient and wait for those deals to come up. Now we do see here that the 12 times champion helm is 100% better, literally 100% stats more than the Bumble helm. So obviously getting the champion helm to rank 12 is better, and it's better by a huge amount than the Bumble helm. But again, if you're balling on a budget, a 12 times Bumble helm will be cheaper than a champion helm, and it'll give you the same stats. So you might as well be considered a champion piece here. Now we talked about, let's talk about the other exception. So helmet is an exception because the stats it gives are almost identical to the champion helm. We'll look at the boots here. So same kind of thing. Getting a 12 times Storm Tacet is pretty much the exact same as a champion stride, just not quite as good. Getting a champion stride, so I use champion stride. This can be used with any of the champion boots in the game. I just chose it because it's what I had. But we see you get an astronomical amount of stats from the boots. The champion boots should be your first priority, and if you're going to get only one piece of champion gear, they should be your only piece of champion gear. The amount of stats that the boots give are insane. So you look, at a 12 times Storm Tacet will give 180 total stats, whereas a 12 times champion stride will give 272. And the champion boots are by far the cheapest piece of gear, and they give an incredible amount of stats. So if you are going to go for champion gear, the boots should be your first item, and if you're only going to pick one, it should be the boots for sure, like no question. People might argue that the chest plate is needed because of the reduced upkeep for food, but that is manageable to manage your food without this chest plate. It is possible. And not only that, a champion plate is literally double the cost of the boots, and the boots give 272% stats with 12 times Astrolated, whereas the champion plate only gives 230. So you can see that like the boots are a big yes. You should definitely go for them. We look at the main hands here, and we see again, so we look at the total stats and look at how small of a difference the Skull Crusher is from a champion edge, from a champion blade. So the champion blade is the best sword in the game, gives you infantry and range, gives you the most stats, gives you lots and lots of attack, and it does give you that army defense. But the difference between a Skull Crusher and a champion blade is the difference of 14% stats. So if you've already got your Skull Crusher, to gold, and you're like, well, am I going to push champion? Am I going to push the Skull Crusher? Skull Crusher, I would say the last piece of champion gear you should make is the main hand, because the Skull Crusher is just so damn good. It gives such great stats, and such great stats compared to its champion counterparts. Now again, these do have an army defense to them, but we're not including that in the total stats. So somebody could argue that these are actually even better than what this graph shows, but again, we're just not including that. So for the stats that really matter, this is what you're looking at in terms of difference here. And when you look at the 12 times Astrolite cost, or the total stats that 12 times Astrolite gives, a champion blade only gives 20% more than a Skull Crusher. So for those of you that are wondering, well, maybe I've made a piece or two of champ, what should I make next? Definitely don't make the main hand. Use your Skull Crusher. Use that thing until you're finally ready to push to champ. If you're not going to push to champ again, just 12 times Astrolite the Skull Crusher. Get 150%. Get 150% attack with the Skull Crusher. Like, that's huge. So, and the difference between the sword or the main hands are quite small. So we can look at as well the offhands here. And so an Eternal Codex is by far the worst, I think. I don't know. Yeah, so I changed the math in this to reflect that the army HP, there is army HP on this, but it's only for range, or no, it's only for cav. So I only multiplied it by 1, so it's really just total attack by 40% cav HP. But anyway, you can even see that the total stats for an offhand, like the Eternal Codex, gives more stats than a Champion Light. Again, this gives infantry defense, or it gives army defense, but you could also say the same for the Winter Mitts. And if you're looking at total stats, total desirable stats, the Winter Mitts actually have the most stats, even more than say a Champion Light. So I think people underestimate the Mitts. I think Champion Light at rank 12 is better than rank 12 Mitts, because attack is more valuable than HP. But Mitts definitely are a contender, and they're so much cheaper. So again, like honestly, if you're making champ, this is the way I would go about it. I would do your boots first, then I would do your helmet, and I would do the champion helm, because that is the best helmet in the game, and it gives 340% total desirable stats, which is huge. It gives so much army HP. It's crazy. So I would go boots, helmet, chest piece, offhand, then main hand, and then you do your accessories last, probably. I know some people are probably going to want to see the accessories, so let's have a look real quick. So the Ambrosial Cups have they have infantry HP and range HP, so I changed the formula to only multiply the HP by 2 instead of 3 to reflect that. And we can see that a 12 times Ambrosial Cup is worse than just a regular accessory. And look at the stats on a 12 times Faith versus an Ambrosial Cup. 110% difference. So that's why the accessories are the best for sure. For champ, like by a long shot, they're just very expensive to make. So maybe you're looking at this and you're like, well, I'm not buying the argument. Or maybe you're thinking, well, all these certain different pieces of champ gear have army defense. So let's move to the value system. So what we did with the value system is we have a total value amount. So the value amount is not a percentage. This is a formula that I've created, which takes your total attack, multiplies your total attack by 3, because it's the most desirable stat. Army HP is multiplied by 2 because, well, we'll go here. So army attack is multiplied by 3. Army HP is multiplied by 2, and army defense is multiplied by 1, and that's just to show that attack is more valuable. So it's to show that HP is more valuable than defense, and attack is more valuable than both of them. So I know it's an arbitrary number, but it's just a system I found that seemed to work and would kind of also show my point here. So again, when we're using the value system, we're actually including army defense now. It is only multiplied by 1, so it's going to be the least important stat, but it's included now. And we see the same trend. A firewall plate at level 12 has a value of 360, whereas a champion plate, which includes army defense, only has a value of 297.5. So again, even accounting for army, because we can't just take the total stats and add them up, because they're not all worth the same, right? Maybe this would be different if we just added all the stats together, including army defense. But again, army defense is just so much worse than attack that you don't want to just include it with the same value as attack when we're doing this value system. The only thing that is different, and that is a stark contrast to the last one, to the last sheet, is the offhand. Looking at the winter mitts versus the champion light. Now again, because our value system, we're multiplying attack by 3 and HP by 2, the winter mitts, basically all the stats they give is army HP. They do give army defense, but so does the champion light. And army HP only multiplied by 2. So we end up actually getting pretty small value amount versus the champion light, and that's because the champion light has attack as most of its stats, like just raw attack, which is valued at the most, it's valued at the highest. So this could be where you argue that going for a champion light is actually better than going for the mitts. At the same time, you have to remember the cost. Mitts are so cheap compared to champion light, and they still, you see Mega Titans still using winter mitts because they're that good. So, take that as you will, but basically we see the same trend. We see the Bumble helm at rank 12 is better than the champion helm, non-astrolighted. We see the Skull Crusher astrolighted is better than the champion blade, or the champion edge and the champion blade. We see that we actually, with the inclusion of army defense, the storm tassets actually pull away from the champion's stride to make it better. But again, look at the value system. Even accessories don't have that high of a value system as the boots. The boots just give so many stats. And then we can look at the accessories. I know people will probably want to see the accessories again. even including with the new value system chart, an Ambrosial Cup at rank 12 is only slightly better than a Champion Faith that's not astrolighted. And of course we look at when a Champion Faith is astrolighted to rank 12, and of course it's miles ahead of the Ambrosial Cup. So those are kind of our spreadsheets, and I've included those spreadsheets to kind of just back my point in that. So what's the conclusion here of the video? Well, the conclusion of the video is, if you are looking to spend on the game, doing something like this will be limits. Doing something like this and astrolighting all the gear to level 12 will be far cheaper than getting all champ gear, and you'll basically be an 8-piece champ, if not more, if all this gear is astrolighted out. Because again, the stats you get from astrolighting make these better than just a regular champion piece of gear. It's almost at the point where I almost wish that I hadn't gone for champ, and that I kind of wish after Astrolight came into the game that I just stuck with free-to-play gear and didn't push champ, because it would have been, it's so much cheaper to astrolight versus getting champ gear, and you get the same stats, if not better, for the most part. So like, again, unless you're gonna astrolight champ gear, which is very expensive as we've seen, why would you get champ gear anymore? Like, I don't see a reason for it. I think something, like I said, like this would be more than acceptable. Like, you see the stats on it, they're not, these aren't jeweled or anything, and the only stat that's really suffering is the army HP. But all the attack stats, like, these aren't even jeweled, and the attack stats on here aren't that much lower than when I've got my mixed on, right? So the attack stats are kind of pretty much comparable. The only thing is you're missing out on the army HP. Am I? Oh yeah, I'm not in Fury. That's why my stats are a little lower. So anyway, I hope you found this video informative. I basically did this video to help people figure out how they're going to spend their money on the game appropriately, efficiently, and effectively. Again, it's almost at the point where I wish I hadn't gone champ, because I would have been able to astrolight all that gear that I just showed. I definitely would have been able to astrolight all this gear to rank 12 for the cost it took for getting champ gear and then astrolighting my champ gear. So anyways, I hope you found this video informative. Moving forward, maybe I hope we see some more non-champ players astrolighting their gear. And honestly, like, if I saw somebody with this gear completely level 12 astrolighted, I would be sweating. You may be missing a lot of the army HP that comes with the gear, but again, like, my gear right now isn't completely astrolighted, so all those stats are going to go up, especially the army HP. Now if we throw the boots on here, like, if you were to not go with the Storm Tassets or the Dragons, what do they call it? Dragon's Talon? Yeah, Dragon's Talon. If you were to go for the boots here, that increases the army HP by a huge amount. So again, if you are gonna go for any champ, the boots should be your first one, and I recommend the infantry boots. The reason I recommend the infantry boots is because you've already got the Gargantua belt, and you've already got the Dragon's Talons for ranged. Guard belt for cavalry, Dragon's Talons for ranged. If you have the Storm Tasset, great. Even if you don't have your Storm Tasset mythic, or like let's say you have your Storm Tasset at gold, if you are looking to spend money in the game, I would recommend going for the champion boots instead of finishing off the Storm Tassets, just again because of how many raw stats the boots give versus the cost. It's probably one of the most cost efficient ways to get stats in the game. So anyway, I think that's probably where I'll end the video. Again, I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to seeing more players with non-champ Astrolighted out. Thank you for watching. It's been a pleasure. Please let me know if you have any suggestions to improve my videos or anything. Please let me know if you know of anywhere that has non-copyrighted music that I could throw onto my videos. And yeah, with that, you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for watching. Take care.